Alright everyone, this is a story that's almost beyond satire, but involves arguably the most well-known satire site that exists currently, now that The Onion, sometimes they're a little bit less funny these days. Sort of like SNL, when they started to go into decline, or Mad Magazine, maybe after 2010 or so. But I'd still read Onion stuff sometimes, but it's not the same. But the Babylon Bee, its CEO Seth Dillon, apparently has been barred by his own alma mater from going to speak in the chapel there. He was going to give a speech that was going to be like mostly jokes, because it's sort of what he does. He's a Christian dude, and he does have right-wing tendencies, I think. And then you're talking about a dude who went to a Christian university, runs a religiously tinted satire site. What the fuck do you expect? And it was hilarious. Here you have, and here you have a Christian university. The, what's it called? The Palm Beach Atlantic University. Religious. That doesn't necessarily mean you're highly traditionalistic, but it's religiously geared. Why is it that cancel culture would come for him when he was scheduled to speak? It's because of his opinions about BLM. BLM, a self-proclaimed Marxist group, now defended by a ostensibly vaguely conservative Christian university. And they actually decided to go along with the cancel culture mob. And apparently they haven't even responded yet to queries about, the reasoning behind that. I guess the initial idea was they didn't want him to speak in the chapel there, specifically in a religious building, specifically because they're worried about having, some sort of rigmarole going on, people shouting at each other, getting hot under the collar and shit, protesting, because they're like, well, it's a sacred space, so we don't want that, it's a sanctified area. That actually kind of makes sense, but, you're precluding him from speaking at all, it seems. I guess initially they were going to move it to the library or something, but things fell through, I guess. And so he's basically been canceled from his own university. But even if it's just like chapel related, let me weigh in on that separately. Let's say that I go to a university, graduate and stuff. And universities, usually when someone is fairly well known and has graduated from a university, that's like brownie points for them. They love it. They love it when the person talks about the university. They like to talk about the person. Someone became a philanthropist, an investor, next billionaire, next big inventor. They're like the next Tesla or something. Universities love that. By the way, this is why Ivy League exists. It's not because their coursework is better. It's because of the names associated with places like Harvard and Yale. They got in early. They have a lot of heavy hitters there. Oh, George Washington went here. Oh, well, Robert E. Lee went here. And you have that sort of thing, and that's basically, you're paying for the brand name more than anything else. But the idea that you're among the big shots, and you can sort of elbow your way into the higher echelon of society more easily, even if you are only reasonably intelligent, simply because of potential business contacts, political contacts, various opportunities can open up, and one hand washes the other, and it's basically the stuffed shirts of society. But it's funny to see this from, again, a Christian university. I would think that they would come out and address the social justice warrior mob, address the cancel culture Karens. I would think they would come out and ridicule them and say, well, you're not going to show up at our church here, our chapel, and cause shit. This person went to the university. He's not coming to talk straight politics. He runs a satire site. The Babylon Bee is hilarious. They're constantly cracking jokes, and the funny part is, and this is when you know that things in society are screwy, right? When the satire articles are believable enough so that, like, sometimes, you at first see it, and until you realize it's from the Babylon Bee, you think it's real. Like some of the weird shit they say about, like, a Biden or something, or some Dem proposal, it's no longer, the reason it's the funniest satire is because it's believable. It becomes almost a satire of the satire itself, if that makes any sense. That I feel sorry for the dude, because, again, the uber wokers, the cringe fringe, have showed up to prevent someone who, by and large, is known for hosting this site that is funny. It's meant to be hilarious, and usually is still getting canceled. But this shouldn't surprise us. We've seen people kicked out of colleges for their political beliefs lately. Like students and stuff. They have the wrong political belief. I'm surprised that some colleges won't ban you if you have a MAGA hat. They seem to prevent those people from effectively defending themselves against defamation without getting kicked out, or at least stern talking to. We have all sorts of political bias in universities. Definitely. It's definitely a thing. Now, by and large, there are some claims on the right, like some people on the right are like, well, colleges basically just churn out a bunch of lemming-like leftists. Well, I went to UVM, which is one of the most left-leaning universities in the U.S. What am I known for? Not for being particularly left-leaning. At the time, maybe, but it wasn't because I went to UVM. I was developing those views largely before I got there based on the Iraq War, based on how dumb Bush was. You can't blame me. I'm basically the story of every other millennial. That being said, there is a left-wing bias there, usually among teachers, normally among faculty to an extent, and you're necessarily going to get that in an academic setting anyway, just because of, again, centralization, systems based on authority, they are left-leaning. What is a college? It's the same thing. They micromanage and police what students say and believe on a regular basis, so why wouldn't they be left-leaning in general? In this one, you've got, the conservative Christianity angle, I guess, or I guess liberal Christianity, and you still got like pink-haired people showing up to complain about the way that he feels about BLM. BLM is a terrorist organization, essentially. They're causing terror, aren't they, on the streets of multiple U.S. cities, throwing bricks, fucking throwing Molotov cocktails. They keep trying to blame mysterious armies of white supremacists that have infiltrated the ranks of the protests. Again, how many black white supremacists do you think there are? The leader of the Proud Boys is a black Hispanic named Enrique, and they want to try to talk about the dude like he's Goebbels or something. He's the next Heinrich Himmler. It's absolutely asinine. And cancel culture is something that's become so pervasive that even a lot of liberal commentators are coming down on it. You got J.K. Rowling, who's literally a third-wave progressive feminist. You got Noam Chomsky, who is basically a Bernie baby. These people are warning about it too. People who have survived genocide are almost universally warning about cancel culture because it reminds them of of the way that in which young people under the NSDAP or the Soviet Union or East Germany used to act. A lot of times, the thugs were usually a bunch of teenagers and college kids. They're the elite shock troops of every genocidal regime because they're the most easily controlled, dude. No shit when somebody who survived the Holodomor or something like that, when they show up as an immigrant 50 years later, they see this shit happening. They're like, maybe you should do something else. Maybe you should go in a different direction because it's spooky overtones about, piles of skulls and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, I remember Pol Pot. Yeah, you're basically starting to do the same thing. It's a really sad time for people and not something we need to replicate. And that's the other thing. I'll just point this out in closing. People, especially on the left, they like to make light of claims like that as, oh, well, it's not going to happen here. No, you're funny comparing Microsoft and Google and Facebook teaming up to deplatform someone across the visible internet. That's not the same as rounding up dissidents. That involved the government and shit. It's not the same as a prelude to genocide. Tinfoil hat, conspiracy theories. It actually is. See, there's the problem. It always starts off with something like that. You gotta boil the frog. You don't just take over on day one and begin shooting people. There's always a lead up. Dude, there was a lead up. You look at all the genocidal regimes. Lenin's people, / Stalinism, the purges among the Nazis, Pol Pot, any of these things. They weren't instantaneous. There's no instantaneous revolutionary uprising. There's decades of warning signs beforehand, and it almost always starts with censorship, whether government applied or not, and social pressure. It almost always starts that way. It almost always starts with bullshit like this. The fact that the CEO of a satire site, a political satire site getting censored, that's almost a self-mockery of what he himself talks about on a regular basis. It's the whole fucking point. Leftist cancel culture, it's something that gets lampooned by the Babylon Bee on a regular basis. And the claims about it aren't as funny as the reality. That's when you know that there's a big problem. That's about all. Peace out.